God used a heckler in my life to get me where he wanted me to be. Sometimes your heckler is confirmation that you're doing what God has for you to do. If you're doing something and you don't have any hecklers, that may just be your stuff you're doing, because God's stuff is going to take him to get it done. So there's this comedy club in New York called the Comic Strip Live. It is a very, very hard club to get into. In fact, comedians who are new in town like myself would start lining up at 6 o'clock in the morning for a show that took place at 7 p.m. And if you get chosen, if your name is pulled out of the hat, you actually get to do 90 seconds in front of the manager in hopes that he'll call you back the next month and you don't have to wait in line. So it's really hard to get in this club. So it's finally my turn to perform at the Comic Strip Live. And I'm about to get on stage. But this comedian, well-known comedian named George Wallace walks in. Here's the problem with that. When somebody like that walks in, whoever's next gets bumped. I'm next. I'm about to get bumped. The manager's already walking over to me. This is not good. I'm about to get bumped. But no, this is where God shows up for the first time in my life. Well, this is where I noticed him. The manager says to me, "Hey, Michael, listen, George Wallace is here. Do you want to go before him or after him?" That never happens. You never get an option. I was like, "Before him, please." So I go in before George Wallace, and I got New Yorkers laughing. But not only are they laughing, he comes in the room and he's laughing as well. After the show, there's a bunch of comedians around him, all asking him questions. He leaves them, and he walks over to me. And he says, "You're really funny, and you're clean." He's like, "Let me ask you a question." He's like, "Why don't you curse?" I was like, "I don't know, if my grandmother come to the club or something." My grandmother wasn't coming to no comedy club. What was I gonna say? My friend might hit me in the chest? I'm a grown man. So he laughed. He said, "You know what? You're funny, you're clean. I want you to do a show with me and my best friend in a couple nights." I didn't know who his best friend was. I get to the show. It's me, George Wallace, Jerry Seinfeld. Like I'm tripping. Like this is an awesome opportunity. As a side note, I'm gonna pause real quick and let you guys in on something that they didn't know at the time and most people didn't know. At this time, I am homeless living in my car. My address was 1997 Chevy Lumina Drive. But nobody knew that. Like, that's not something you just tell people. People ask me where I live. I'm like, I live on the east side, which was true. My car was parked on the east side of the street. So I'm homeless living I talk about that I wrote a book, but that's not what this is. I just wanted to share that little nugget with you. So he says, "I want you to do a show." And I get there, it's Jerry Seinfeld is there. It's pretty awesome. That's his best friend. So I do 2 shows and I got 2 standing ovations. I rip. I'm the man. I'm like, yes. After the show, the club manager approaches me. It's a different club. And he says, "Hey, Michael, you got a great set tonight. Let me ask you a question. Would you like to go to church with me this weekend?" I'm like, "Church?" I'm thinking, why are you messing this up right now, dude? I don't want to go to church. I'm thinking, back up. You're making my feet hurt. Why would I go to church? And I'm going to pause and go real deep for a second. Then we're going to jump back into the story. So let me pause and show you something. I actually had the conscious, subconscious thought of back up, you're making my feet hurt, when he invited me to church. Why would I have such a thought? Why would that happen? I'll tell you what I found out was the reason I didn't want to go to church and the reason I had this subconscious, conscious thought of back up, you're making my feet hurt, because the last time I was in church, if you remember, I had these shoes on that were like 3 sizes too small. So I'd actually built up a negative neural association that said church meant pain. So when people would invite me to church unknowingly, I would feel a sense of pain and not want to go and assume it was the church. But it wasn't the church, it was just that situation. Had I been curious before, I probably could have found that out and went to church a lot sooner. Is there something that keeps you from really seeking out God? Chances are it's a horizontal situation, it's not vertical. I'm gonna jump back in. So he asked me if I want to go to church. I was like, "Nah, I'm cool. I'm not going to church." Now let me say this. There's only 2 reasons you do anything in life. That's a big statement. But if you catch this, it'll be worth the price of admission. There's only 2 reasons you do anything in life: to avoid pain or to gain pleasure, period. In fact, think about any of the choices you made today, even about where you're sitting right now. One of those 2 reasons was the reason you chose that seat. Avoid pain or to gain pleasure. 20 minutes later, his fiance walks up to me. She asked me the same question, but she was fine. Like, she was beautiful. She pales in comparison to my wife now, but I didn't have a wife back then. This woman was fine. And she had some sort of accent too. She was like, "Michael Jr., would you like to go to church with us?" I was like, I was just looking for a church the other day, man. Find this church, man. So I go to this church, and I can't even find the people who invited me, and I'm sitting way in the back, and this dude comes out on stage, and he's talking about Jesus. He's just talking. He's not screaming. He's not yelling. He don't got no perm. He's just talking about Jesus. He's just teaching, just like Pastor Rusty. He's just teaching God's word, and it's making sense. Then he did this thing where he did like altar call. He said, if you want Jesus in your life, all you have to do is believe in your heart, confess with your mouth. You can come forward and do this altar call thing, and I wanted to do it. Yo, Crossroads, I really wanted to do it. I'm like, for real. But I was like, nah, I got to read the pamphlet first. Because I knew a couple Christians, and they was creepy. It is some creepy Christians out there. If you don't know any creepy Christians, it's you. Yeah, I bet your friends know one. So I told myself, nah, I got to read the Bible first. I don't know anything about it. I don't even have a Bible. Then this lady at this mall area walks up to me a few days later and hands me a Bible and walks off. We never exchanged words. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I should read it. I didn't know it was that big, first of all. I don't know if you saw one before. So I'm reading the Bible, and I get to the part, and I'm reading. First thing I read was the copyrights. I don't know where this thing came from. The Bible was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm like, yo, me too. That's crazy. So I keep reading. I'm going to church. I'm reading, and I got to the part about the job. I'm like, no wonder I don't want one of them. That's crazy, man. So I kept reading. I'm going to church. I get to the part in Matthew where it says Jesus died for me. I did not know that Jesus died for me until I was 27 years old. I didn't know. I read it right there in Matthew. Then I turned to Mark, and he died again. I'm like, I don't understand why he. And then Luke and John, I'm like, why are you going back in the garden, Jesus? You know what's going to happen. I really wish that was a joke I wrote, but I thought Jesus died 4 times, like for real. I finished reading, and I'm digging into the word. I'm putting in like 11 to 12 hours a day, sometimes 14 hours a day reading the word, because I really want to get my life over to Jesus. But you don't have to read the Bible first. I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I finished reading the Bible. It took me 36 days. I finished reading the Bible, and I remember going to the church going up to the altar like during the announcements. I was like, hey, is Jesus here now? Or, you're talking about your picnic, but I've been. And I give my life to Jesus, and now I understand some stuff. I used to just think I was funny, but now I understand I'm funny for a reason. Like there's purpose behind this sense of humor. There's purpose behind the talents and the skills that you have that God wants to use. So now I get celebrities, some that you would know, who ask questions about God. One dude was like, explain God to me. I was like, dude, I can't explain God. If I could explain God, he wouldn't be God. And this other dude was like, well, how is it I can do all of these things I'm doing? You know what I'm doing. How is it I can do all these things and people still say that Jesus wants a relationship with me? And this is all I could come up with at the time. And this isn't even close to explaining how awesome God is, but this is all I had at the time. I was like, it's kind of like being in a car with a navigation device. You ever been in a car with a navigation device before? You guys ever been in a car before? We could start there. You ever been in a car? It's like being in a car with a navigation device. If it says go 3 miles and turn right, and you go 1 mile and turn left, it doesn't abandon what you're supposed to do. It recalculates what you need to do to get to where you're supposed to be based upon where you are. The only problem is if you keep making the wrong turns, the road conditions may be different. They may be rougher and you're running out of time. So you have to be sensitive to listen to that voice to make the right choice about where you're supposed to be, because that voice sounds an awful lot like a coach, because you haven't been practicing for nothing. It's game time. But you have to hear his voice. So now, New York is too expensive. I can't keep living in my car. It's too expensive, so I feel like I'm supposed to move to California. So my cousin had a couch. He said if I could get to his couch, I could stay on his couch, and I wouldn't have to pay any rent or anything. So I'm like, yo, that's where I need to. I feel like I'm supposed to go to California. Here's my plan. I'm broke. I don't got no money. I'm living in my car, eating 1 meatball sandwich a day, cutting it in half, eating 1 half later in my car. I had to turn on the heat like every 42 minutes to stay warm at night. I had a Marriott comforter that I took. I took that comforter back like 3 years later. It looked different, by the way. So my plan was this. I was going to leave New York, and then I was going to get to Chicago because there was a Zanies Comedy Club that I booked a show at. They were going to pay me $475. When I got to Zanies, I knew I would be broke, no more money, but then I would take that money and use it for gas and food to get to my cousin's couch in California. On my way, my brakes start to grind. Take it to the brake shop. They said it's $465. I didn't have $465. I had like $16. So I had to go to the comedy club, and they gave me an advance and gave me the money up front, paid to get my brakes done, and I don't have any money. And I don't know what I'm going to do. But I just met God. I just met Jesus, so at least we could have a conversation. At least I could talk to somebody. So I'm like, God, I feel like you're saying to go to California, but I don't know how we're going to get there because I don't have any money. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm thinking, and the only possibility, I used to sell T-shirts at the end of my show. And the shirts were $10 each, and I'd already done 4 of the 5 shows, and I sold 3 shirts. Yeah, I'm below average right now. So I'm thinking, God, I know what you're going to do. This last show on Sunday, it's going to be a packed house. Everybody going to want a T-shirt. I know what you're going to do, God. I get there's 26 people. And I'm like, God, I don't know what you're going to do, but I don't know. So I remember getting up on stage, and I do the show, and I bring the best show I can. I want to say it's because I'm such a showman, but no, I felt like this might be my last event. So I remember getting up there, and I'm doing the show, and I got these T-shirts, and I got to pitch them, and I'm holding the shirt up like this. And in the middle of pitching the shirt, I get heckled by a drunk dude in the back of the room. How much for that crappy shirt? That's what he said to me. And I didn't know what to say, and I looked at him, I was like, for you, $50. That's what I said, and then people laughed. Then I did my big closing joke at the time. I used to do a joke about being in a nice neighborhood like Beverly Hills, and I'm jogging. And this white lady came around the corner, now we jogging in the same direction. Then she looked back, she starts jogging faster. So I start jogging faster too. I don't know what's back there, but I don't want it to get us. So I finish up with that big joke, and then I go set up my T-shirts on this little stool, and like 12 people walk by me. They don't even make eye contact. They don't even see me. And I'm sitting there, and then this white lady who I won't forget her. She stood there and waited for me to make eye contact with her. And she said to me, "You are so worth it." That's what she said. And she gave me some money for a shirt. But now I had to go get her change because she gave me a $50 bill. So I go get change, and I come back, and she's gone. But I have to find this lady because this isn't a $50 shirt. I got to give her change. But before I can leave, there's another couple there, and they bought 2 shirts. They bought 2 shirts for $100. Then another dude bought a shirt. I sold 13 shirts for $50 each. And God said to me in that moment, God said, if you trust me, I got you. The other thing he showed me is God used a heckler in my life to get me where he wanted me to be. Sometimes your heckler is confirmation that you're doing what God has for you to do. If you're doing something and you don't have any hecklers, that may just be your stuff you're doing. Because God's stuff is going to take him to get it done.